Chairman of the full committee, Mr. Nadler, for 5 minutes.
Ms. Johnson, I'd like to ask you about how concentration of the food system impacts workers in your opinions. The United Food and Commercial Workers Union, which represents 1.3 million workers in the United States and Canada, submitted a statement for the record that described the impact of COVID-19 on workers in meatpacking plants as devastating. They explained that meatpacking workers reported to crowded and closed facilities where they got sick and died in numbers disproportionately high relative to other industries. At the same time, these workers are paid wages that did not allow them to cover their medical expenses. How does concentration impact workers' wages and their safety in markets such as meatpacking? And how can our antitrust laws and other laws ensure that workers have safe work conditions and are paid livable wages?
Thank you for the question, Chairman. And this question actually relates directly to the point that was just made around price and efficiency. When you set prices so artificially low that it allows only companies with access to large resources to survive, they have pretty much free rein to set wages, to establish working conditions with little repercussion. And so as we see sectors that have only a few companies in control, there's no meaningful check on the circumstances that they create for their workforce. So there's a limit and a balance to how low you can drive prices, and then a need to ensure that the costs of doing business are encompassed within that pricing model. In addition, there's not a linear relationship between prices and business practices at large. So what you see in these large meatpacking companies, as well as other dominant elements of the food system, is a decision by these companies to profit and to cut costs in ways that harm workers, that harm the environment, and that are really completely disconnected from the price issues that we're seeing.
Thank you very much. Mr. Maxwell, as Chairman Cicilline noted, many of us are asking why prices are rising now. Is it fair to blame current prices on the Biden administration, or does the problem lie in the way our markets are structured?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think that it is ill-placed to blame this administration or the previous administration's response to an unprecedented pandemic, to blame the response of this Congress on the spike in inflation costs that we're seeing today. I think it's ill-placed to blame inflation on the backs of the working men and women in this country. It is to tell them that they cannot ever have a livable wage because it will increase inflation to too high of a point. What I think we should look at is companies like fertilizer companies. We've submitted to this committee a paper that we published yesterday that describes price gouging within the market. Yes, cost went up. Cost of goods went up for one company 51%. But they have chosen to increase their manufactured gross margin by 680%. Fertilizer prices doubled. Farmers had expected to make a profit. Commodity prices are up. That would be good news for the Congress because that means farmers would need less subsidies. But fertilizer prices skyrocketed.
Thank you. Ms. McClendon, thank you for your testimony. I appreciate independent farmers like you who continue to work hard to provide this country with the food we all need to survive. I'd like to know what we can do to make sure you and other independent farmers are able to stay in business. And what are the consequences for independent farmers and for consumers if the poultry market remains concentrated with just a handful of large companies controlling the industry?
Well, I feel that the lack of competition is not always a good thing. When you have competition in the marketplace, it allows for better contracts, better prices, a more open and free, fair market, as I talked about. You know, I'm not real sure exactly what y'all can do. Part of the issues that we have as contract growers is that we are asked to take on a tremendous amount of debt burden in the hopes that, we're promised that, oh, we're going to make, big money. And yes, we do. My income is significant. However, none of that money sticks. And because of the cost of rising prices right now, the cost of propane is my number one expense today. And just propane for the winter months will cost me anywhere from $20,000 to $40,000 to $1,000. And that's a tremendous amount of income pouring out of my farm.
The time of the gentleman has expired. I thank you for your testimony. I now recognize Mr. Fitzgerald of Wisconsin.